City.
Thank you so much for having me over here today.
So before we begin, I guess I have a disclosure to make that Crunch Fund is actually an investor in Tumblr now.
I'm very happy to announce, yes.
Which we're quite happy about, and hopefully this won't turn this talk into too much of a shill fest. But obviously, I've been a big fan of Tumblr for a while, and I appreciate you letting us come in on that deal.
Always.
To kick things off, obviously, the thing everyone's talking about here now, since Friday and now today, it's happening again, is Facebook IPO. What are your takes on that? Besides, of course, you're going to have the congratulations for Zuckerberg and great stuff on that. What do you actually think about how that's been and how that's gone down? And, you're a company that's now in the later stages, certainly from an investment standpoint. So how do you look at kind of the Facebook idea?
I've been looking at the context of the industry, so I've been getting something out of it that I think a lot of people in the industry out of it, which is just, it's been so high visibility that it's been a real learning experience for me, for I think a lot of founders, aspiring founders, who have gotten to see exactly what this process entails, and got to see exactly what led up to that at Facebook. Facebook when it actually an 8-year-old company for the IPO. I think it's a lot of really useful context that there's a lot about businesses, about being a public company perspective for a lot of these new companies. There's that. There's another end too, which is I just think it's so important for this industry to show success stories like this. We had companies like Zynga, LinkedIn, Groupon over the last couple of years to continue that cadence. Something as significant as Facebook, I think, is hugely important to show that the internet can really $1 billion.
Do you think kind of the backlash we're seeing now, the stock didn't pop at the initial onset of it, and then I think it's down like 10% or so today. Do you think that kind of criticism is going to dissuade companies from doing it?
I certainly hope not. That's way over my head, so I would hate to speculate on that. My understanding is actually that the stock not popping on the first day is a signal that they did a brilliant job of capturing all the value. That's what I hear anyway. So again, this is part of why it's so interesting. Is these are conversations that I wouldn't have been having, things that I wouldn't have been privy to work for this very high profile IPO Facebook. So I think the whole thing is a tremendously useful experience for everybody in the industry.
How do you view it kind of from a distraction perspective for a company? There was a lot of talk leading up to it that Facebook, really put off going public as long as possible. They viewed it more of a distraction type thing and weren't able to embrace it. How do you view that, in the context of Tumblr? Obviously, I assume you guys are not going to be, you have no plans on IPO, but correct me if I'm wrong, anytime soon. But how do you view kind of the whole distraction mentality of either you're just raising a big round? How do you kind of keep all the troops in line, focused on what the product is?
I can tell you, any financing is at best a 2.5-month process. It's usually distracting everybody. We'd like to believe that you keep to just the executive team, just the finance guys, just the handful of people who can be involved in that something that Facebook and Google don't necessarily support, although they're brilliant at targeting, they're brilliant at converting on direct sales or direct response advertising. Less so when an advertiser or a brand wants to tell a story, when a brand wants to create intent or create a customer.
Did you obviously took some flack for some of the anti-advertising stuff you said, and kind of going back? I mean, what is your view? Is that I would assume that it's not so much that Tumblr is moving into the straight-up advertising space, but you're trying to kind of reinvent what advertising is.
I don't know about reinvent. I would actually say we're going back to the roots in a way. I mean, I've definitely been hard on advertising, digital advertising. I think if I could go back in time and speak a little bit more clearly to it, it's really the state of digital advertising to me is, it's not that it's so bad, it's just it's kind of uninspiring to me. It's very much built around getting somebody to buy that camera from you, and that moment that you know that they're interested in buying the camera. It's about A, B, C, and D testing the little blue link to drive a 1.5% click-through or a 1% click-through versus what advertising used to be, and I think what marketers really understand, which is telling stories that resonate with people and create customers, create intent to buy your camera or visit your shop or be a customer, which is the kind of advertising I actually really enjoy. I think a lot of people really enjoy, and is something that has been kind of underserved on the internet today. It's something that right now marketers don't have the ability to do on Google or Facebook.
Right.
And I think they found ways to do that on Tumblr. Those are the types of products that we want to make good.
You said recently, I think in a Wall Street Journal piece, approaching your it said, we want lots of ways to promote yourself on Tumblr when you've got something great. You can hustle and do it organically, or you can feed a little money into the system and jumpstart it. That's pretty interesting because that almost makes it sound like one of the monetization things you guys are thinking of is not that much different from like a virtual good in a game in a way, where like you see like these games and you can kind of play them for a long time and slog it out and get to the achievement you want to get to that way, or you can pay a small fee and just do it right now. Is that a fair way to put it?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, it just kind of feels that way. I mean, the fascinating thing to me is all of these platforms talk about how they're accessible to anyone on the spectrum. You can put $10 into Google AdWords or $10 into Facebook ads to promote your account. There generally isn't much incentive to do that. Certainly as a user, right? As a Google search user, you're not constantly searching and leave little blue links on the right going, oh man, I want to be there, I want to be there.
Right.
But then you think about all the creators out there in the world, people who are trying to build audiences and really be grateful for that attention, who are trying to sell out their show, they're trying to sell copies of their book, they're trying to get a big deal, they're trying to get photography gigs. You realize there actually aren't a lot of outlets for that type of advertising, that type of exposure. So given that we have such a strong creative community and the products that we're building really work well for any creative content, any storytelling, we've tried to build them in such a way that they do scale down from a big brand cutting a check for $100,000 down to you writing a post that you're really proud of that you want to pay $5 to make sure as many people see as possible.
I know that obviously there's ways to promote individual posts, and then there's also you're using it on the sidebar, right, on the actual dashboard. Can individual users buy that as well, or
not today? So right now, the way we're sort of divvying it up is when you log into Tumblr today, there's the main column, which is content that you subscribe to. And it's very precious to us. It's very important for us to maintain that. What we basically said, we're not touching that, but the right column, that's those 250 pixels we do use to promote content that might move you sideways in the network, might show you something that you wouldn't otherwise seen in that main feed of everybody who you follow. And we've actually been promoting content there for about 4 years. That's something called Tumblr Radar, which is editorial selections across the network. And that's a place where we found anybody that can be an aspiring photographer or Lionsgate watching the Hunger Games both perform sort of equally well, assuming that they were showing them great content. So that was the most idea. Certainly today was the obvious place to start to let brands enter into the dashboard, put brands in front of all of our active users. That would actually pay a little bit more if the products were really got you the attention that you wanted out of or the exposure that you wanted on our network. So my bet is that it won't be the majority of our revenue, but we can generate real meaningful revenue by making some of that real estate not just available to the big brands who are getting big checks, but by carving out a little bit of that real estate to people inside the network, the creators who are also making really compelling content and would be happy to pay a few bucks to make sure that it gets the exposure that it deserves. So, it's troubling when that American Express ad is like injected into your feed and you're like, you need to get this out of here. This isn't something that I subscribe to. It's a little bit offensive to see online, but when it's just one of your friends' things and they want to make sure that you saw that you're having a big event tomorrow night and they want you to show up, like that's something that you get. It's a very different relationship that you have with that content.
I want to talk a bit about, obviously there was news recently that your president, John Maloney, is going to be stepping down, or he's transitioning out. So walk me through a bit of that idea. I mean, you've been with him for a long time. You worked at his
I did, yeah. So he gave me my first real programming gig when I was 15 years old. So we've been working together on and off for about a little over 10 years.
So
we've been working together, yeah.
So why now? Like, what is going on? Is Tumblr like in a state of transition? Is that a way to think about it? Or?
Well, for the last year and a half, John's been doing a really brilliant job to build out first of all, just a little bit of context. Tumblr went through 15 people at the beginning of last year to just recently passed 105. And along the way, not only is John thinking about scaling those teams, but adding real brilliant leadership to the company that can direct and manage those teams and support me in my efforts and guide me to make this thing really successful at everything we want to accomplish. So anyway, in the last year, John's been bringing more and more of those senior people onto the team, taking those things that were previously reporting to him and moving them to these great, very experienced leaders who manage hundreds of people in whatever it is, technology, marketing. So where it used to be me heads down in product and John managing everything else, John's been slowly carving out chunks of the company and bringing in these great experienced leaders. So the last 6 months has really been him making sure that we're on the rails. This is a team that we really trust and that I work well with. And he's already been making this transition over the last few months. But it was basically him setting up the new set of leaders to take this company to the next place. And him transitioning out this month is really getting ready to move on to his next big opportunities.
So that almost sounds not too dissimilar from kind of the Google situation where Eric Schmidt was in place for all that time and then, has yielded now to Larry Page. Is that a fair way to think about it?
I think it's so unique. So another example would be Facebook went through several iterations of their leadership team, starting with Zuck's friends to a few people that are early investors, suggesting the company to the next place. We see these companies go through these transformations or evolutions, and I think they're all subtly different between these companies, but I think they're all you're seeing the same things in all these companies, which are bringing in people with real experience, bringing great leaders to help add new things to the company or help just take it to the next place in terms of scale.
And you talked about, John allowed you to be head down the product, but now I assume you have more responsibilities. Is it getting harder for you now to do things?
It's very different. The biggest thing is actually in the product where I was writing code 6 months ago, and I haven't committed anything in the last 6 months.
Is that depressing for you, or do you?
It's a little bit discouraging. I find little opportunities to get close to it, and every now and then I have a chance to hack on some little Tumblr-related tool or side project. But it's very different, and it took me a little while to really fully embrace it. I'll say I've now completely embraced it, and I have to say it's such a privilege to be able to dream this stuff up, go in and whiteboard the stuff with such a talented team, and then have any one of dozens of these brilliant engineers, worlds more talented than I ever was, go out and actually execute the stuff, implement the stuff. It's an amazing feeling.
Earlier we talked about Facebook, of course, and there was a lot of talk about one of their weaknesses now. Their biggest weakness is probably on the mobile side of things, because that is a big part of their company now, and I assume it's a pretty big part of Tumblr. And you guys have got to be focusing on that pretty fast right now, right? Is that fair?
Absolutely. I mean, so one is we have a vision for a lot of stuff that we want out there today that we haven't delivered yet. So we're just hustling as fast as we can to make sure that all of our mobile apps are where they should be today. And I'm happy to say we're making much faster progress. And you guys will hopefully be seeing something we're very proud of the next few weeks. Next few weeks, yeah. But beyond that, we're staring at the same inflection point that I think every other company is staring at right now, which is Facebook just passed 50% of their traffic now sharing on mobile devices. That date for us is early 2014.
Really, you forecast about that much, you know you're going to get that?
I mean, it's a fascinating thing to think about. It can be a little bit overwhelming to think about because I grew up on the web. I grew up with my browser, desktop computers, and had imagined this product for that platform. So to think about the use shifting in such a dramatic way really changes the way that changes the original vision we had for this thing. So it's fascinating, and it's really, I think, a fascinating exercise to think about. Definitely an important exercise.
I mean, yeah, do you feel like Tumblr will make that transition successfully when it does happen to mobile? I mean, obviously, you're saying 2014, so you've got plenty of time to try and do that.
Well, put it this way, I don't think the original vision would have been nearly as meaningful on mobile platforms. I think where that development has taken us has given us I should say, thinking about that for a long time now. That's allowed us to develop a new vision that I think is very unique and very successful on mobile devices.
One thing that was in the news a lot, I guess, last year and sort of in the beginning of this year was scaling issues you guys were having, of course. Those seem to be mostly resolved now. Is that how you guys are seeing it, or?
I mean, it's
are you out of the woods?
I would say we are at least caught up with the curve now. So we were, this is part of me just being kind of trying to be too clever and being an inexperienced leader here, because I was convinced that with a scrappy little team, we could do all of the stuff to keep our scaling really, really cheap, really efficient, and get the site to the performance that we needed. We were chasing that goal while our growth projections were taking off faster than we were expecting. And we got ourselves into a really nasty, basically 9 months, where we were behind on everything and didn't have the resources to catch up, which meant we didn't have enough engineers, we didn't have enough engineers who would scale systems like this before this quickly. And as soon as we brought those people on, we started to turn the corner. That was unfortunately a few months before we caught up, but I would say we're mostly caught up now, and save a few sporadic instances here and there. We're mostly caught up now, and I have a real plan to get that done.
The last thing I want to talk about is, also in the news recently was Pinterest doing their new round and joining $1 billion club. Your name, I guess, the Tumblr name gets brought up in competition with Pinterest every now and again because you both do things in a more visual way. I would say a visual approach to blogging. How do you view that? Do you view it as a full-on rivalry? Do you think about that?
I can tell you that we try to think about it fairly regularly. It's fascinating. We try so hard not to view anybody in this ecosystem as competition. And I think it's served us very well so far. So as an example, Facebook and Twitter, right? So Facebook all of a sudden added that little bar, a lot like Tumblr's post bar with video, text, photo, video, link. Twitter started incorporating media, all of these things. There were a lot of questions about Tumblr and Twitter early on because we heard so many investors. We've tried to embrace all of these platforms as syndication, just pumping out as much content as we can over those networks. And I would say it's generally worked, by focusing on empowering creators inside Tumblr, helping them get distribution wherever that distribution is on the internet, so that we pushing content on Facebook and Twitter. Facebook and Twitter today now make more inbound traffic to Tumblr than Google. And if you look at, depending on who's counting, somewhere between 5 and 10% of the content on Pinterest and
all those millions of blogs you have